The PGA Tour logo is over 40 years old. This famous and iconic image depicting a golfer post-impact moving into a full free-flowing follow-through is one of the most recognizable images in golf. And yet, we still don't really know who this image or silhouette was based on. So what are the things that you could learn from this image that could help you to play better golf? What are the movement patterns demonstrated uniformly across the board by good golfers that makes their follow-throughs look more similar than they are different? Today I'm going to share with you exactly what those movements are, as well as a drill that you can do which will add more power and fluidity to your golf swing than ever before. The golfer in the image is depicting something that is absolutely fundamental and demonstrated across the board by every good golfer, and that is the weight shift in the finish of the swing. How the golfer moves the weight towards the target throughout the entire downswing and follow through. You've seen the image so many times, you may dismiss it out of hand, but looking at that picture again, you can see how all golfers demonstrate this, and this is why we don't really know who that golfer in the image is, because it could really be a whole host of different golfers. They're all moving their weight towards the target. They're all demonstrating a similar looking finish position or movement into the follow through. Let me show you what you would look for from this front camera view. If I was to highlight the center of my hips and the center of my shoulders as 2 points of reference at setup, I would generally start from this front view with those two centers more or less aligned on top of each other. There would be a slight side tilt to the right for me as a right-handed golfer, because I would put my hips and my weight a little bit more forward. So I would preset my pelvis a little bit towards the front. But essentially those two centers would align pretty closely on top of each other. You wouldn't want to see too much of a upper center tipped back at the beginning of the swing, and equally the lower center back and the upper center forward would look strange as well. So we start out with those two centers lined up, but as we move to impact and then into this follow through position, you can see how the lower center has displaced itself from where it started. It's moved much further forwards. That helps to create this essential side bend in the golf swing to the trail side that's depicted throughout the downswing and into the follow through by all great golfers. So I've now got the lower center more forwards and the upper center still back where it started. The right side bend that creates helps the golfer to shallow the angle of attack. It's also an incredibly huge power source in the swing, helping us to swing faster. So you might look at it and think, well, every golfer just looks like that, but this is what they're doing. They're moving the lower center progressively forward throughout the downswing, post-impact and into the follow-through. And that's what helps to create this image of the PGA Tour logo player with the lower center forward of the upper center into what we'd consider more of a classic finish position. And what that would look like at the end of the swing would be that the belt buckle would be the part of the golfer that's protruding the furthest forward, pushed the closest towards the target. That would look different to a golfer who wasn't able to move that lower center forward enough. As they came through, the upper center, the center of their shoulders, actually ends up being further forward than the center of their hips. That's the complete opposite of how an elite golfer would do the finish. The difference between finishing in forward bend like this and backward bend like a professional player would be tremendous in terms of the way the club would be delivered, both from a speed point of view and a club path point of view. If you want to swing fast, you want to learn to push the lower center forward. If you want to swing slowly, you would move the upper body more forward than the lower. That's why the PGA Tour logo doesn't look like this. This would be the movement demonstrated by high handicap golfers who swing the slowest. So if you wanted to learn to recreate that image and start to add some of the benefits to that movement to your swing, this is exactly how you do it. Take your regular setup, and then you're going to stand yourself up, straight up and down, like this. Then you're going to take that lower center. We can use the belt buckle as the reference from this front view. I'm going to take that lower center and push it as far forward towards the target as I can. I've essentially moved my belt buckle over my lead ankle. And if you can go even further than that, please do. The more you can create that displacement between the lower and the upper center, the more of this side bend you're going to create. So I've now got my belt buckle all the way over my lead ankle whilst I'm standing upright. As I've done that, please note from down the line, I haven't turned at all to achieve that. I've simply pushed my pelvis to the side. I've moved my hips as far to the left as possible, but I haven't opened them. I'm standing upright, pushing my hips to the side. It creates this side bend. Then the third part of that movement would now be to take that and rotate towards the target. So as I move into this finish position, I'm creating the desired P9 position where the arm and the shaft are parallel to the ground. I start to look more and more like that tour player. That's a three-dimensional movement that you can train piece by piece to start to understand what the destination should feel like. Once you know where you're trying to get to, it becomes far easier to get there. So stand up straight, place the pelvis as far to the left as possible, and then add the rotation in. You've now got this side bend and this hip sway built into the swing so that my lower body is further forward than my upper body. This is something that you could train at home with or without a club. You certainly don't need to hit balls doing this to begin with. Just learning the sensation and the destination of where to get to is going to be truly very valuable. Then you can start to turn that into one movement. Once you know where you're trying to get to, you can just start making practice swings where you push your hips forward and end up recreating this picture. And of course, when you're ready, you can go ahead and hit some shots trying to do the same. So that's a high ball flight. You're going to see that happen actually as you do this movement. You're going to start to not only swing faster, but this side bend helps us to launch the ball and create more height, giving us more carry potential as well. So that's the way you'd work through the physical movement of learning where to get to. Now let me give you a drill that you could do with an alignment stick to help train that as one continuous motion. So if you have one of these, I'd encourage you to grab your alignment stick right now and go through this with me. You're going to place your alignment stick behind your trail leg and create this significant amount of leaning of the stick. Because of the length of the stick, I can place it behind me and have this shaft lean, so to speak, where I've got this angled stick position behind me. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is to drag the stick along the ground and move it towards the follow through simply by beginning to slide the lower center forward. So I'm trying to create that displacement again between the lower and the upper center. I'm trying to move the belt buckle to the left as much as I can. The goal here is to train that hip sway, which needs to happen very early in the downswing. Get the golfer to move their hips to the left as fast as possible, as early as possible, and then to keep the arms straight, just to keep moving the arms up into the finish would be the way to elevate this club away from the ground via the side bending and the extension of the body. Training the correct anatomical movements of the torso, the legs, the pelvis, into the follow through. When you do this correctly, your arms will stay straight all the way into the finish, and the elevation of the stick will come from the hip slide, side bend, and the extension of the chest up in the follow through. Again, that's starting to look more and more like our PGA Tour logo, which is how all golfers, all good golfers, demonstrate the follow through. And then when it comes to actually hitting the balls, a couple of checkpoints for you to look for. At setup, those centers are more or less on top of each other. Very slight side bend away from the target at setup, created by the hips being forward. But essentially, you'd look from the front view, that spine would be just a few degrees tilted away from the target. By the time you hit the ball, when you watch yourself on camera, that lower center will already be more forward than it was at setup. That's creating that side bend that we need. And we're getting that, remember, via the hip slide. The pelvic sway towards the target that happens throughout the entire downswing is a key component to good ball striking. And then finally in the finish, the last thing you would look for would be that the pelvis is the furthest forward, the belt buckle being protruding the most out, and that the upper center is still back towards its original starting position. There can be a little bit of movement of it forward, but ultimately you don't want that head to get in front of the pelvis. So make sure your head stays back while your hips move forwards. So those are your checkpoints. When you start hitting the ball and doing this drill, you should notice more clubhead speed, the ability to swing faster with arguably less effort, and you also should notice the ball starts to fly a little bit higher, giving you a greater chance to carry those hazards both off the tee and as you approach the green. So this is a great way to increase your distance and your ability to flight the ball more effectively without necessarily needing to try harder. In many ways, this can feel easier. So when you're looking to make your follow through look like the pros, and if you're wondering why the pros all choose to have a follow through that looks very similar, it's because there's a lot of advantageous pieces that you get to the ball flight when doing this movement. Use those checkpoints when you practice. Try to feel like you finish with your pelvis pushed as far forward as possible, and you're in that slightly bent backwards position. Your chest should be more up to the sky in the finish than it would be down to the ground. I'm not sure if you have your own opinion on who the PGA Tour logo or silhouette was based on. I've got one or two ideas myself, but if you do have a thought on that, make sure you get down into the comments and tell me who you think that PGA Tour player would be. Guys, thanks for watching the video today. I hope you found it interesting and informative, and most of all, practical. A movement that is as universally demonstrated as this by great players would suggest that it's fundamental to playing good golf. So hopefully the tips and drills that I shared with you in today's video will be something that you can take with you next time you go to the range or to the course. If you did enjoy the video today, I'd love you to hit the like button and please subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And finally, do not forget to get down into the comments. Let me know who you think this golfer is. Who is the silhouette representing? Is it Hogan? Is it Snead? Is it someone else? Get down into the comments and let me know what you think. Now that you know how to move your body in the follow through to achieve a tour quality finish position, I want to show you how to create tour quality ball striking every time. Go and check out this video I made, which is part of my tour quality ball striking video series. It will teach you step by step how to achieve the best ball striking of your life. Alternatively, you can also go and check out this one right here, the 90-90-90 drill, which is my go-to checkpoint drill for everybody training for better ball striking.